Yeah.
And we
are live. Welcome everyone to Modwain's House of Fun. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, well, the way Europe is changing, I guess, based on my last video about Alfie Evans. And I don't know where the sound is coming from, but someone is creating the sound as if the plane is getting up.
Elicia.
No, it's not Elicia. And now everyone is quiet. So maybe it was Elicia.
You sure?
Yeah. Maybe it was Elicia. Anyway, based on the video I made about Alfie Kings, about not Alfie Kings, Alfie Evans, sorry, about other stuff that's going on in Europe, the way the European Union is basically still being formed. We are seeing in Europe, or at least I believe we are seeing in Europe, a change in politics. We are becoming more and more authoritarian. So I thought, let's talk about that one. Might be an interesting topic. Yeah. So what do you guys think?
Yeah. It is, especially the European Union, yes.
I believe he was asking for opinions on the matter, not on the topic.
Well, today.
Well, I said yes, it is, and I'll put my because, and it all comes back now to the European Union. As we all know, it is authoritarian. It has a lot of socialistic tendencies, but it is not really socialistic because the way it's pushing forward economic policy, it is favoring the huge corporations, but it is using propaganda to get the masses to forget about what they are actually doing. The way they introduce regulations to regulate the small businesses like they're big businesses, the big corporation can put multiple bathrooms in their establishment. A small family-owned cafe cannot. So
the thing is, oh, sorry.
Yes, go on.
They talk on the left side and they fill the pockets on the right side.
Yeah, yes. And this is something I said before that I'm going to make a video of it, and then I abandoned it, and I'm picking actually up again the research for it because I don't want to spread false information. But Europe is communistic. I see so many things that was happening in Poland, and the way we're happening, when I look at this, it's communistic, and it doesn't come from useful idiots like Antifa. It comes from the top. And there is actually, the more I think about it, the more things I also realize about it. So, yeah, there we go.
Poland has some pretty crap living conditions.
At the moment, yeah, still.
The funny thing is that Europeans do not believe Eastern Europeans. They have to actually, you have to go through the experience yourself before you believe that communism is a bad thing, or that communism is even started. You know, they're just all blind. They don't want to believe.
Well, that's not a colorful. That's not a colorful future. If you look, they are still paying the price in Eastern Europe at this moment.
Yes, indeed. And my experience is when I tell people some stories that I've either witnessed or mostly heard from my parents. The most response I get is like, I know you well enough, so I know you're not making up this shit, so I believe you. I just can't believe it. I just can't imagine it. And
yeah.
But what's scary thing is that even people in Poland seem to forget why we shouldn't have censorship and stuff like that.
You know what I think? Who's to blame? Schools. They don't teach about this stuff. I mean, we weren't taught about communism or anything. It was all about the Nazis in Germany. You know, there was nothing about communism. Everybody thought it was a good idea, and if the schools don't teach it, then it's not accepted. You know.
Well, it's even worse. They feel affection towards Marxism, and it's not only the schools. It's in the culture.
I'm not sure if it's in the culture. I think it's been created. We are being pushed towards liking Marxism basically everywhere in Western media and in pop culture, etc., we are being pushed towards liking Marxism.
Why?
And that's a good question. And no one has an answer for that, or at least not that I know of.
No, but
A cure for socialism in Europe? It's easy.
well, people have a Oh, sorry.
No, go on, Nick. Go on, Nick. Go on, Dick. Sorry, go on.
People have a tendency to cheer for the underdog. Let's put it that way. So this thing about oppressors and the ones who are being oppressed, that's a very attractive concept. If you look, for example, here in the Netherlands, the Palestinian issue, we even have in our government, how do we call it, The Hague. There's been a Hamas leader invited who's responsible for multiple bombings for some brainstorming and some talks by our own government, and he's just sitting there explaining his ideas to our ministers and stuff like that. It's frightening.
The thing is, though. Partly, yeah, I agree with the schools because I have a feeling that I had more at school about the communism than people, for example, from the Netherlands, England, simply because, well, maybe I didn't know it all, but they didn't have a reason, or maybe they were even afraid to lie about this too much because, like, my parents, they still lived. My parents were living through that, my grandparents were fighting as well, so that's the thing. But here is the one thing, Dick, that I'm thinking, like, when you said that people have a tendency to signing up with the underdog, and I just have to remember what Peterson said about it, but also what I saw in Poland long time ago, right? That the real socialists, they don't care about poor people. They just hate the rich, and rich is everyone richer than you. And the thing is that people who go on the streets right now and are favoring socialism, they are themselves seeing as the one oppressed, because basically that's what we did. We didn't taught them history, and we taught them that have a right to everything, and that they are basically poor and oppressed. So now the socialism looks like, even though I'm useless, I would have an income, and everyone would have a life, just well enough, happily ever after, which isn't true. But when I talk to people here, for example, or in England, about, Russians eating their own children, choosing the youngest one so the rest could survive, they're just looking at me sometimes like I'm freaking crazy.
It sounds crazy.
What's also not helping, if we look at the financial crisis 10 years ago, what happened? Our governments decided to help the bankers, and the people have to pay the price. So that is also not helping. How do you say it? If people who caused those problems are let off the hook, and we as civilians, we have to pay the price, and that can also help to people might think that socialism is a good idea.
Cynical people say because women are allowed to vote.
I'm going to go back to something that John said. I am going to interrupt because I do think this is important. The left is pushing a form of totalitarian on us that looks a lot like socialism, but indeed, it's large corporations together with the politicians. It's plutocracy and socialism combined, but socialism in its worst form, so that plutocracy can reap the biggest benefits. In the end, this will destroy us because it's indeed the bankers that make money. It's the industrials that survive of this. But it's the death of capitalism. It's the death of liberalism. It's the death of free speech.
What's plutocracy? Sorry. I don't think
plutocracy is the rule of money.
Sorry? The rule of money. All right.
Yeah.
The rule of money.
Isn't that capitalism, though?
No. Capitalism is a system to develop a society.
Okay.
The rule of money says, I have money, therefore you have to do what I say.
But that's not so different from the communist system, because the communist leaders back in the day also helped themselves very good.
And that's why it's such a dangerous, how do you call it, marriage?
President?
No, not president. It's two systems coming together. It's a marriage of two systems. It's plutocracy, which is the extreme form, or actually, plutocracy is in a way the totalitarian form of capitalism, and socialism, and these two things coming together, which means that the people at the top make money, and everyone else is shafted.
It's a horrible fusion.
Well, I think what's happening is that if you really, really, really study socialism, right? Socialism, it is the ultimate form of control for the government. You can lie to the people and say, oh yeah, we're going to get to communism. It'll get there. But really their goal is just to have it the way that it was in Egypt, right? Where one person has all the power and we're all working for the big guy in the triangle.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We are moving towards a totalitarian regime in Europe by the guise of democracy, with the added illusion of socialism. And in the end, we're all fucked. And that's not me, being negative or whatnot. This is, for example, what we saw with the Alfie Evans case. I mean, it's terrible that the kid died, and I'm not saying that if he would have been able to go to Italy, he would have survived, because 9 out of 10 chance says, no, he would still have been dead. But the fact that the regime decides that you're not allowed to do anything.
In communistic Poland, you weren't allowed to leave the country, basically. And basically what happened now, and parents couldn't leave the country.
What was the reason for it? Again, I know he died because he
had that degenerative brain disease that basically ate away his entire brain, and his parents wanted to take him to Italy for some experimental treatment that God only knows would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wouldn't. Let's be honest.
I absolutely don't think it would, but the benefits of seeing if it would have, or if anything would have happened, would have benefited that treatment in the long run. But point in case is the health board said no, and they took custody away from the parents, and they just said let him die with dignity, and left the child to die. They took him off of life support, and he died like 19 hours later.
No, he died 4 days later. No. He didn't die 19 hours. He died 4 days later.
Okay.
Yeah, he lost.
And if they want, in Portugal, they're discussing euthanasia now. If they want to have him die with dignity, they would have given him some medicine for him to pass away quietly without pain.
Indeed.
It's not allowing him to drink, not giving him food, and turning off his oxygen supply. That is pure torture.
Yeah,
Well,
I am absolutely livid and about that, and I'm not going to talk anymore because it upsets me a lot.
Yeah, the thing is also the fact, look, it's not even the point whether the treatment worked or not, as cruel as it sounds. The point is that the parents are not allowed to leave the country, that the medical chopper is standing outside of the hospital and the police is basically surrounding the hospital, which made me think about Poland. And there were other parents that I know from Mod, that the kid was dying of cancer, and they say they cannot do anything to them, and they decided to go to Czech Republic, and then basically UK sends a warrant to arrest those parents. It's a communistic Poland. It's like you couldn't go anywhere, and if you somehow did anyway, and they would realize, they would basically arrest you. So there you go, the first thing, and the list is really long.
It's crazy.
I find that the immoral point of view of many of basically it is socialism, and the left because of the right side, I'm center left economically, center right more center right economically, center left more socially. That is my position, and I don't give a crap whoever tries to say I'm not, but I am. Now the right side of politics, the more of course, thank you. The more conservative people are, they value life more, but not for violent crimes. The more left you are, you value life less, except for children and and unborn. So you don't want the violent crimes to be executed, but you have no problems with killing unborn children. And in this case, the United Kingdom, which they set a precedent, actually children.
Yeah, and how is that?
Yeah, that is totally wrong. I am totally against any form of killing people, whether they be in abortion or whether they be in killing people for violent crimes. That's capital punishment. I am totally against all forms of killing people, even assisted euthanasia. No, to a point. Again, I have a point where, yes, if they are absolutely suffering, give them an injection to end their life quickly, not make them suffer like they did to Alfie. No.
Yeah.
Put the mic on.
Rin, say something, please. I'm taking command of the channel. It's Rin's turn.
Hello, Carlos.
Hello, sweetie.
How are y'all doing?
We are fine.
Yeah. Way to speak for all of us.
Yeah.
And who isn't? Come on.
Maybe I'm just okay. All right. Maybe I'm just okay.
Not worse than any other day.
You're okay. Yes, you are. You are okay. Absolutely, you are okay.
So, Carlos, what were you saying?
How do you know?
You were saying that like you were against all forms of genocide, including euthanasia. Like you're against assisted suicide, even if the person like, I want to die. You know, a person is committed to dying, and another person agrees to end their suffering.
I'm not totally against euthanasia, but it's in very, 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 very special cases.
What about abortion?
We should.
Abortion, I'm totally against. No, I'm against. Yeah. I'm against. I don't say it enough, or I don't say it a lot in Twitter or whatever, but I am against, because I am against capital punishment, and to me that is the same as abortion. A child who is unborn is the same as killing someone. No, a criminal, if you kill them, they just alleviate their punishment. No, they have to live their punishment. That's how I feel about capital punishment. And with abortion, no.
What if the kid is? What if we know that the kid will be really sick?
Yes. Caveat: yes. If the mother's going to die, or if the man is going to die, mother's going to die. If it's rape, and if it's, I'll clarify. Sorry, guys, I'll clarify because it's a complex. I am against abortion as a contraceptive method. That clarifies it. Correct.
No, I wasn't going to put this
No.
point.
It has to be clarified because people today, there's a lot of fog clouds around it. I am.
We have in Ireland. We have the 9th. I think was it the 9th? We have
a referendum. Yes.
A referendum on this now, and I'm not with you on this. Carlos, I think there should be qualifiers, because
let
me just finish. Personally, I don't think that the word someone or baby is necessarily the correct term for a zygote where there's no brain cells, where the cellular, the way that cells are built. You go through fish stage and
I
all
know,
sorts of stages. So I think there should be a cutoff date, you know, and it's reasonable, I think, to discuss that, you know. Just saying babies, you know.
We are sort of going against what, but we'll just entertain this for a little bit more.
The only reason I asked is because I was expecting you to start shouting Deus Vult in a second.
Oh no! You can prevent that zygote from forming. You have so much free contraceptives. Why do you need abortion as a contraceptive method?
No, I agree with you.
That's it. Oh shit! What happened? I didn't touch it.
I think
I didn't do it.
Neither did I. I'm fine with abortion for rape cases. If the mother or the child or both will die, you know what I mean, malformation, etc., etc. Yes, I'm fine with that. That is acceptable and it's moral.
You say that like as if you know, as if contraception is always 100% secure. It can malfunction, and you can even not know it until you're in well into the first month. You know, you just realize the woman will, or the girl, because it's often like young people who experience that. Like I have no experience with contraception. They'll find out. Oh shit! I shall now have a baby. I don't even have a stable relationship, and you know
there is the morning after pill.
You know that most, but that's for the morning after. But that's only when you realize something went wrong. But sometimes, oftentimes, you don't realize it until the first month, right? And there's your problem. That's what you're opposed against is, and what I say is that one of the major reasons for poverty and welfare states is single mothers. Is people who raise children who are not in a stable relationship, you know. And we say to third world countries, we say to them, oh guys, plan your families and don't cause poverty, you know, plan your families, plan your children. And on the other hand, you say, but you can't use this as a contraceptive. Yeah, it's not a contraceptive that you plan to use, but it's an emergency thing, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for a 19-year-old. You know, when you let's say your period is gone, is not coming, you're 3 weeks in, and then you say, okay, am I ready to raise a child in poverty without a father and without a, you know, then you need to weigh the advantage and disadvantages of it. Yes, you will bring it through, but this kid will have a lot less of a chance, you know.
Isn't there another problem at the bottom of this? Because in all fairness, how can a single mother, how can a girl get pregnant from sex with someone that they don't see a future with? This is a social issue. This is something that we as a society need to address. I mean, free sex is all good and well, but there are responsibilities that come with it. And if we can't bear these responsibilities, then we should stop women having free sex.
So you're proponent for prohibiting premarital sex. Is that
no? It's not so much prohibiting premarital sex because people don't have to marry for all I care. But people have to take their own responsibilities.
Wait. I would like to. This is. You guys are making it sound like women are stupid idiots, and that we go around getting impregnated, and that we don't know anything. It's actually, if you teach girls proper their entire menstrual cycle, it's actually quite easy to prevent pregnancy. And the abortion talk is really more about women being seen as feeble, stupid people that need to be protected. So I'm sorry, but it's not there. I don't like to talk publicly about abortion, but I'm going to make an exception at this point. Okay.
Now, can I answer my own defense?
Guys, it's messy.
Let Elicia talk.
Yes.
I haven't even said whether I'm for or against abortion, so I'm going to say this publicly for the first time, is that I am not for abortion. I think if you don't get an abortion within the first 3 weeks, you should not get one.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Women we have so much access. So, since we are 12, at least in America, we are taught how to get the morning after pill. We are taught about condoms. We can get free birth control so easily in America. It is reckless at this stage and at this phase in science to even, I don't even know why we have abortions anymore outside of very extreme cases. When you are raped, if you are raped, you will go to the hospital and they will give you medicine that will stop it. That rape argument is a misnomer. The only way that the rape argument can come into play is if that child is raped by somebody that they know and they're unable to go to the doctor. But the way that they use this and skew it, we have turned this girls into against their nature. It is
American.
So many girls that get abortions and it destroys them. But in the meantime, we're telling every single girl that they should just go out and have sex because there's no ramifications. And in the meantime, society is cruel. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, that's the American angle. Now, I can give you the angle here in Ireland. All the things that you said about, free condoms and sex education does not apply here. It's you don't do anything until you're married, and it's all kind of under the carpet, and that's exactly what leads to this situation, because it's not realistic to expect these moral standards from teenagers.
Can I get a word?
There's no contraceptive education in school. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
I want to say I'm kind of more with Elicia on this one. I think that the best way to prevent abortions and really the best way to get rid of them is to teach safe sex. And women are smart, men are smart. We are smart people. We know what to do. And honestly, a lot of the education that I went through was very bare bones, and it kind of all resulted in, these things are here, but the best thing you should do is just not have sex to begin with.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's a very dumb attitude to take. I think people are smart enough. If you provide the right information, if you teach people when it's safe, when the best times are, and don't treat it like it's a taboo subject, you're going to get the results that you want.
Yeah,
Can I ask you
teaching people about safe sex. I also like how now they've invented something so that like they invented the pill, but for men. I'm pretty sure you guys heard of it. That now men could take the pill too, because you do hear of cases where a woman is so desperate to be with a man that she would tamper with the condom by getting a needle and putting little holes in the condom. Or there was this one incident where this woman, she was having sex with a man, and then she took the condom, she freezed his sperm, and she basically got herself pregnant.
Boris Becker.
But if I recall correctly, he still had to pay child support, which was weird.
So just to answer my thing, Elicia basically said what I was going to say. Yes.
But I wanted to say one thing about the education. When I look at Poland, when I look at my parents and my grandparents, rather, there was no sexual education. But the thing is, and it wasn't perfect. I'm not saying it was perfect, but the public pressure was that if you got pregnant, you actually would get married most of the time with the guy. Now, I know it resulted in a lot of unhappy marriages. I know it's not perfect. I understand that. But at the same time, it kind of made you think and made you responsible and made you think twice what you're doing in many cases. And the problem is, like, look, I'm not really for abortion unless it's rape, unless it's a health issue. Like if I would be, a few months pregnant and I hear that I'm going to probably die or go, totally blind and I'm not able to even raise the child, or the child would be really seriously wrong. Yeah, shit happens. But at the same time, just because I wasn't educated, even that doesn't really go with me, because nowadays you can access so much information for free, even having an internet. And I'm not saying to go on the forums when whatever can say whatever shit, but you have also official websites that actually are by, you know, by putting up by the doctors, often by our government. You actually can think for yourself, but you don't have to do it, because now we live in a society when you get pregnant, you just get the abortion I'm going to pay for, and well, you will get consequences no one will also tells you about, because it destroys a lot of girls. But when you know 15, 16, 17, so on, you don't think about it, because all you think, if I'm going to get pregnant and I don't want to have a baby, I can get rid of it, and that's the problem.
Well, the thing is, I'm not really pro-abortion, but I am pro-free choice. The alternative is much worse if you get all this messy stuff with clothes hangers and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I think abortion should be in place. But with that being said, I see these interviews with these millennial types. I don't know if they are feminists, but they are claiming having a baby is just something like a parasite that is leeching on you. And when I see that stuff, I think the threshold to get an abortion is way too low. And I think responsibility is it's far gone. And I think that there is something for the parents to do here.
Before we get off the topic, Modwain, can I just throw a hand grenade before you get off the topic?
No, before we go back to topic,
should men be allowed to vote on the referendum against abortion?
Yes.
Yes.
Hell, I'm even going to say as much that I'm wondering whether anyone should be allowed to vote other than the direct parents.
Yeah, exactly. But let's get back to socialism in a little bit.
I'm going to finish this. I'm going to make one last thing, and I'm going to bring it right back to the
social. Yes.
we were having about socialism and the way our society is being, well, filleted, sucker punched. The thing with the whole discussion about abortion is not whether we are in favor or against abortion. Funny enough, that's not even the real issue. The real issue is that somehow we have been getting a society where the choice of an abortion is more natural than the choice of being a parent or being, how do you call it, responsible adult.
Yeah.
And therein lies the main problem. And this is the main problem that we are seeing within the Western world as it is. We can no longer be responsible adults. We have to be told what to think, how to think, and when to think this. And if we do not agree, then you're automatically alt-right.
So what am I having for breakfast tomorrow?
Yeah, you're not allowed to think about that. You should have already gone to the shop and buy whatever breakfast cereal they want you to have.
But you're the one who's supposed to tell me what I'm supposed to have.
Eggs and bacon.
Milk.
And bacon.
Anything with bacon in it.
Anything with bacon in it. No, but the thing is, we have a society where we are openly discussing whether abortion should be legal, which is, in my humble opinion, not a bad discussion to have. And I used to be very much pro-choice. I'm now a little more reluctant, but I am still pro-choice. But we need to recognize that at this point in time, it is being used as a form of anti-conception. And that is wrong on so many levels.
I'm not against abortion being legal or illegal. I think it should be available, but with those restricted measures that are normally, because as Elicia said, there are so many, not just for women, but for men as well, and techniques and everything. I'll give you my example. I'm an only child. My parents had sex regularly, but they only had me. And there was no education in Portugal. It was like Poland up until not too long ago.
My condolences for your dad shooting blanks.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Shooting blanks. It was the choice. There's a choice. My father had a sister. My grandfather and all my grandfathers were multiple siblings. And it's not education. It's whatever. It's it is some form of education, but it's the society itself that leads it naturally to have less kids. All the countries. I was studying this in geography at high school level. They said every society passes through phases. Once they get to a certain level of affluence, the birth rate just fucking drops to the ground.
Which is what we're seeing now.
Exactly. China is about to hit that magical barrier where they will start losing people. Japan has been hitting that. Western countries have hit it. Africa, once it gets to that point of affluence, which they are getting there, even though socialism says no, they are fucking oppressed. They're poor as shit and everything, and their wars and tonal wars. Their South Americas, etc., Latin America to make it better. They are getting to that.
Right, from those dreadful cases, yeah, which is a small percentage, to be honest, those abortions you can get for free. And the rest of the abortions, you cannot demand it from your man, you cannot accuse any man. You, as a woman, have to pay for it yourself. The bitches will start thinking.
Yeah, there needs to be consequences. Responsibility and consequences. That's what we're missing.
Well, but that's the whole problem with our current society, and this is something that has been on the move for the.
What did I?
Modwain just died.
Modwain just died, sort of. Yeah.
Let's all go to the lobby.
He's back.
Oh, I'm back. That was
me. You gave me a heart attack, man. My internet connection used to drop like that. Now it's stable. I thought it was me.
I have no idea why I dropped mid-sentence and all.
You were saying something objectable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course I did. No, since the 1960s, we've seen a change in our society. People are basically being told, well, obviously there's the feminist and men divide. Feminists can do nothing wrong, men can do nothing nice or right. But there are more things like this. Companies are to blame, white people are to blame. It's a way of dividing the country. And in this, they are destroying our communal ideas. There is no reason for you to get married. There's no reason for you to live together. You don't need to have children. But at the same time, we need to import people from outside of Europe because we don't have enough children. But the women in Europe, they don't need to get children. There's no use for that. This constant back and forth within the left ideologies, and maybe it's not correct to call it left, but definitely
no, let's not call it left. Let's call it Marxism as it is. It's Marxism.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not really sure if I would call it Marxism either, to be honest, because it's more than just Marxism.
Socialism.
It's definitely critical theory.
Yeah. Well, that is Marxism, pure. And so on.
Well, it's that little bit is discussable, but fair enough. We in the West are being pushed toward destroying our civilization, and we go along.
I don't think it's just Marxism. Sorry, I also think partly it is Marxism. I also think it's welfare.
Yeah, it's more. Well, welfare is a form of Marxism.
Socialism, yeah, that's a form of socialism. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
But it's not just Marxism. There is more to it than just Marxism. But there is a very strong divide and conquer movement going on in Europe. Our social cohesion is totally destroyed, and they are working hard at it to make it worse. And somehow we don't want to see this. We don't want to address this. The gender wage gap. Everyone knows it's bullshit, yet we're still pushing it. The suicide gap. Nobody likes to talk about it, but we know that it's real. We are being played against one another so that we do not recognize that we are basically being ruled. We are being controlled.
Yes, absolutely we are.
Yeah, I think it's because they want cheap labor.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you say.
I said I think it's because they want cheap labor. They don't want, people in the West because Westerners are too expensive. So they want, cheap labor from other countries.
Yeah, there's the economical aspect, but that's not the only thing. If there's no social cohesion, how we can group together and rise up against our governments? There's no way we can do this.
And this is also what I wanted to come back to Alfie Evans' case, which I am very surprised that on my Facebook feed there was one article informing about Alfie. A friend of mine who lives in England, so most of her friends are English. There was nothing about the guy, besides the guy that is like in United States. No one posts on Alfie, and I'm like, would that happen 5 or 10 years ago? People would be really outraged. And I don't often say it. I'm really not a favor for this kind of a solution. But what happened to Alfie, I think the Britain should just stop. People should go on the streets and demand something better, because that can happen to their kids tomorrow. And I'm so surprised people are basically not reacting. And I looked through the even posts of my friends and I checked on the days, like maybe you weren't posting because you weren't on Facebook that day. No, you posted a ton of shit, and I see people posting how dreadful vaccination is and it's really so bad for people and protesting that, and not even one word for Alfie. And I'm like, people, what the fuck? Why aren't you outraged? Why don't you talk about this? I can't really understand that.
It's almost like people don't care about children anymore, that we've moved in society to only worrying about adults so much and have created this self-centered society, just like what happened in Hollywood with the Me Too movement. That was the most selfish and self-centered thing, because at the same time as that is when the pedophile stuff broke free. And where did everybody focus? Oh, the poor adult women, and nobody gave 2 shits about the kids speaking up.
Yeah, the poor horse who basically slept to get a career.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up, Alicia, because it makes me think of the Calhoun experiments, Rats Utopia, where eventually I think the mother mice starts eating their own children. I forget.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to that as well, because what we are seeing is indeed not Rat Utopia but Mouse Utopia. Sorry, Rin, because this is what I wanted to say as well. We see the Mouse Utopian experiment basically proved this, that if a society has little external threats and little push for hard work for themselves, they start becoming complacent. The mice, basically the social structure of the mice stopped to decrease. Male mice started grooming themselves more, making themselves look whatever you want to call it for a mouse. And female mice stopped caring for their offspring. And eventually they died out. The whole populace died out. And that's where we are now. And the worst part is we knew this back in the, 70s? And we are ignoring it. No, we're still pushing about, but we need this ideological system, or no, we need that ideological system. But in the meantime, our societies are nearly empty. We don't have principles anymore. We don't have ideologies anymore. We have concepts.
It's because we're squashed together. There's plenty of room on Earth. What we need to do is give people some space again. I was looking at, I was watching this old movie from the 70s, these apartment complexes that they put like the single mothers in and everything. It's not that we're overpopulated, it's the way that we're all squished together. We need room to breathe. I really think that's...
Don't people want to be squished together though? They always move to the big cities because they get more stimuli there.
So they can pay their damn taxes so that they can get the free damn healthcare and have their babies killed by the state.
Yeah. So they value that higher than having space. You see, they value like what's the opposite of poverty? What's the opposite of poverty? What's the word? Wealth. Wealth, not wealth. Wealth. They value wealth higher than freedom. You know, so that's a big motivator. That's a big motivator for people to move to cities, in my mind. And once you're not educated to see freedom as a more important thing than wealth, you're not gonna get anywhere with this. Yeah, you know, unless you say the state has to fix it for us and has to force us to move to the countries. You know, if you don't value yourself higher than wealth and accumulation of wealth, you will always move towards the cities. That's just a given.
But a lot of people squashed up together going for the wealth are usually way more unhappy than people who have the space.
Oh yeah, well, you have to make that experience because people don't think that far.
Yes, I agree. But Elicia, she's right, because it's very simple. If you have a house with a little garden, even if it's just a few squares, you have a little garden, you see some birds, some nature. You can actually take the time to put your thoughts in your head on a single row and look at it. But if you live in these cities, everything is fast. Everybody is busy. You don't have the time. And at the moment you spot a problem, you are being gaslighted by the media and the politicians like there is nothing to see there. You are wrong. It continuously happens. If you have some criticism towards Islam example, you are being told by the MSM you're Islamophobic. That's just one example, but it's with everything. And at the moment you are more part to in nature. You actually have some time after a job, after your job, you've worked 8 hours straight to put your foot on the brake and give your thoughts some thoughts, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep.
The thing is that we are not allowed to voice our problems. We are not allowed to speak out our criticisms. People tend to make it about, how do you call it? Stuff that's easily seeable. Oh, you must be against homosexuals if you are in favor of the family unit. No, the two things have nothing to do with one another. You can still have a family unit with homosexuals.
They'd say it if you're conservative, even. You're just if you're not socialist or if you're not far enough to the left, then you must have certain anti-values, like anti-social values. If you're not socialist, you're anti-social.
Yeah, like recently on Twitter, I was arguing with somebody that I pretended to be far left, and like we were getting inside this argument because I told them that yes, I would protect the freedom of speech of a Holocaust denier, and that person's like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, they try to make it sound like it says something about me. That, the freedom of speech of a Holocaust denier. But I would set the freedom of speech of an intersectional feminist as well. So are you going to call me an intersectional feminist now? Because when you care about free speech, you care about the freedom of speech of everybody,
Well, this is another part of the problem. I don't think this is one problem. These are multiple problems together. This problem comes from the 60s ideas, I guess so. This idea of virtual signaling is it's very addictive to be a virtual signal, and everybody does it in some way. But like Raven says, with I like traditional families. Oh, you're against homos. The person saying that is addictive to feel good. It's a burst of a dopamine, you can call it.
Yeah, and I want to mention something. Like you said, someone said, I'm sorry, I can't remember, that, for example, nowadays you can speak against Islam. And again, I'm not going to look at the communistic Europe. I'm going to look only at communistic Poland. It's easier for me, right? Now, Russia was very influential, and my parents couldn't speak ill of Russia, right? And Islam is very influential, and we cannot speak ill of Islam. We cannot even speak truth about Islam, what if it can be seen as a negative. So there is another thing, like I see, wait a second, we already had that shit. I already know that from Poland, and I've said it before, and I'm going to repeat it again. It's scary to me that for my mother, it was more clear what not to say so she doesn't go to jail than for me. And I know that even if she wouldn't say these things, they still could throw her to jail. Of course, that's how communism worked, if they wanted to, right? They didn't, but if they wanted to. But the thing is that she was damn sure what not to say, because she was really sure, if I say that, I will be arrested. Now, I don't know what to... I can say everything, really, and it can be seen as a hate speech, and I could get arrested. So it's really a bit scary that that actually it was clearer for to my parents in communistic Poland.
Yeah, the legal system is perverted at the moment. Definitely, it's just a pure perversion, and like things like hate speech or cultural appropriation, stuff like that. PC kind of principles they have perverted our justice system, and they are like working on destroying it, basically. In my mind, there needs to be something done on a like fundamental basis, you know. People need to, but you know, the good thing about like Count Dankula, he has now raised I think £176,000 to go against the £800 verdict, you know, the puck joke. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's gonna more like this is gonna happen, you know, where you can still use the legal system, because the actual laws, even though they're ambiguous, they're not. The advantage of the ambiguity is that you can still contest them within the framework of the law. You can say it's ambiguous, and here's an example that leads it into absurdity. Okay, sorry.
Portugal has has a constitution. Right, we drew it up in 1975, 76, and what they did admirably is that they plagiarized the First Amendment of the United States, almost word for word. It's everything's there, all the exceptions, everything. Right. So we don't have hate speech laws or anything. We can't have them because freedom of speech is protected with the exceptions that everyone knows, inciting violence, etc., etc. We are fine with that. In fact, there were 2 test cases about 4 years ago in Portugal. In one of our most poorest provinces, this guy, when our former president visited, he basically called him a wanker. He called him a clown and shit and everything. The local police arrested him, and they took him to court. A week later, or 2 weeks later, one of our senior political commentator on air said basically the same thing. Paraphrased, he called him a wanker. Yeah. He wasn't charged. Now, there was such an uproar, and the lawyer...
quoted, sorry, did he call him a wanker, or did he just quote the other guy?
Paraphrased. He called him a wanker by a lot of other words.
Ah, okay.
So did that other Portuguese poor person, a peasant, basically. Now, our lawyers are fucking top dogs. They are bloody awesome, because Portuguese are the most crooked people on earth. We are bastards. We are absolute We make used car salesmen pay off the, I don't know what it's called. My brain's not working at the moment. Public defendant type lawyers, where the lawyer goes to defend someone free, basically, or the government pays for it anyway. He was so good. He said, "Oh, whoa, judge! Look what that other commentator said. You can't find him, my client, and not find that other guy. He set the precedent." And the lawyer said, the judge said, "Yeah, you're right. Case dismissed." Basically, yeah, I can criticize my prime minister, my president, as long as I don't slander them. We have slander laws, which is okay. Shit, that's fine. That's not a free speech or anything. You can't invent. I can say Muslims are not, no, Islam is not a religion of peace. Many Muslims are terrorists in Europe. Many. That's a vague word. It's not all of them. It's many. A lot of them. And I will not get arrested. I will not have helicopters come over. I will not have the SWAT team come over to me, like in the United States. And our constitutional writers.
But where's the truck?
Awesome.
Where's the truck when you need one?
Oh, we have a lot of them. Food trucks, delivery trucks. I know the joke. I know that I had one of the recipients of a injustice in one of my streams.
Yeah, that's true.
Goodfellow got arrested.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, he had Goodfellow.
I miss talking to those guys. I wish they'd start their stream that they had together, and him and Step. I'm sorry for just going off a little bit, but Goodfellow and Skeptoy, I'd love them to have to talk with me again. It was an awesome talk.
Skeptoy is
awesome.
great.
Yeah, they are awesome. Yeah. They are fucking good.
I'd love to talk with Goodfellow.
But Raven,
you guys are. I'm not comparing. I'm including them. I hope you guys see that. I'm an open book, basically.
But to get back to Portugal is picking it up pretty well, and even in Portugal, you do not have complete free speech.
No, we have free speech like America, like the United States. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Then you're the only country in Europe that does.
Yeah, we are. We are so we are so fucking socialist as well. You know what they passed the laws this week, where they're discussing the government, which is a socialist government, backed by the communists and the extreme left, even more left. They passed rent laws, basically fucking up the owners of the houses. And then they wonder why there are no new apartments being rented and new houses being built to accommodate the rental market. And the ones that are existing are falling apart.
Yeah, we have that problem.
They wonder, they're scratching their heads.
That's why Venezuela is crashing.
Hopefully, when the next election comes about, the Social Democrats, which are centre-right-ish, will get into power, and I do hope they just reverse those laws, because they are useless, honestly.
But this is also the reason why I'm not so afraid of the system, because the system can be changed, and it's just how it's applied. I'm more afraid of the culture and the mindset of some people.
Oh, that's changed. Culture and mindset changes easily, mate. Day to day, it's called propaganda. You propagandize enough on television, you will change minds like that.
That's what my video I'm making is on, is propaganda.
Elicia, I give you my absolute. You don't even have to ask. Anything I say, you can use, or absolutely.
Well,
don't even quote me, please.
You should come on my channel sometime, because I'm going to be free soon. hopefully.
Yeah, next Wednesday, right?
I have except Mondays, sometimes Wednesdays, like I did a quick stream today, and sometimes Friday. But Mondays when I do my WhatsApp and archaeology, that is sacred. But yeah, anything after. Let me see what Central American time, that coastal time. I'm on London time, so you can anything after 7 p.m. London time, I am free. So yeah.
Yeah, my schedule's about to change again, but can I tell you guys that I know the solution to the medical kidnapping problem?
Yeah.
I do know because it happens. I actually blame America for your guys' medical situation on the control over people and medical stuff.
Right.
You have to have a constitutional amendment added that states that everybody has a right to choose or not to choose medical intervention. That's all you have to do. And I know that sounds really hard, but Utah actually accomplished it. Now, the problem is it's going to take a rich family having their child in jeopardy. That is the only way to do it. But that's how Utah got our amendment in Utah, because we had a rich family where their son was diagnosed with cancer, right? But he didn't feel, they just decided to get a second opinion. And the doctor called CPS on them, but they were so rich that the father told the mom to take the son, flee the state. He got arrested, put in jail for kidnapping their own kid. They got a second opinion. The kid didn't even have cancer. And then it turned out that the doctor needed this kid because he fit a medical requirement for a study. And so it was, but these parents were so rich, they were able to, hide and dodge from the law and hire enough attorneys that it finally got broadcast. So that's what you need to do. You need to find a rich parent that has it happen. And then when it happens, then you have to put forward a constitutional amendment that states that people have medical freedom. It's the only way to do it.
Elicia, just this a quick thing. You just described Portugal.
Why did you have such a precedence as well?
Yes, we have absolutely that on our roads. For them to be repaired, a rich cunt has to feel uncomfortable, or is right uncomfortable before they pave the road.
Oh my God!
Yeah, honestly, yes, and I think only Portugal actually in Europe has a constitution.
No,
I don't know if other countries. The
Dutch have a constitution as well.
Okay.
Can I,
actually, does Europe have a constitution? I think we should get one.
Wait a minute.
It does have it does, but it's not really a constitution. Just you follow what we say, or else I'll take you to, or else I'll invade you. Basically.
Hey, but let's give Nick a moment.
I'm trying to imitate.
Come on, Carlos, let's give Nick a moment. Come on, come on.
I'll shut up.
Modwain, the Netherlands has a constitution, right? The grondwet. Yes, we have, and it costs 2/3 of the votes to change it. And we have this one constitution that says we have self-determination of our own body. But now, a couple of months ago, the government had pushed in a law that we are all becoming donors in default.
Yeah, which is against the constitution.
Exactly. And the thing is, you pay taxes all your life. They grab all your money. And now even our own bodies are eigendom. Property of the government. Our bodies are now property of the government, even though we have this constitution that says we have self-determination of our own bodies. So that's how far it's already gone.
Wait a second. One question. Sorry, Carlos. Before I go, but wasn't it that you actually you are by default like a donor, but you are now still right to go and say, no, I don't want to do it, and then you off the list.
That doesn't matter. The
I know,
government,
but I still want to know that slight difference, because
yeah, yes, you can go and say I don't want to be donor, but that's a world upside down, because what the government is doing is saying your body is ours until you say it's not, and that's a world upside down.
Okay, I have to apologize for that. We started that. Portugal were the first country in Europe to say that by default, if you don't opt out, you are a donor. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
I do.
No, I
if
see.
someone rich will be dying,
yes,
and you go to the hospital as well, and they actually see, okay, my heart could be now to the parents who just paid off to look, and I could be saved, but I will have a bad luck.
I'm just saying that our systems is we protect if you opt out. They will not even think about it. You sign a paper. I opt out. You hand it to your family doctor. He introduces it into the system. It's Portugal wide, and if I go to another country and die there, they can't do that by default. So they have to transport my body back to Portugal, for example. And by default, if I opt out, I'm buried. I'm not even touched at all. It is our data. This is data. Our data protection is tops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I don't opt out, I want my organs to help save people. They won't be, because I'm just so fucking alcohol.
You're too used up.
Yeah, I'm just too used up. But but yeah, we have this. We introduced that. We were probably the pioneers of Europe. It was introduced about 7.
Donate your brain.
I'm going to interrupt once again, because to bring it back to the topic a little bit.
Well,
I have something on the topic. What do you guys think of universal basic income? Finland.
No.
They already stopped it.
Yep, exactly.
No, they haven't stopped it, but I think they're working on stopping it.
They're working on stopping it.
Yeah. They haven't been at it for more than not even a few years, and they're already pulling the plug.
Well, and yet it could still be decided by Europe that needs to be introduced Europe-wide.
Oh, they will do that. Europe is a fucking idiot.
That's the problem. The European Union is not, I repeat, is not a democracy.
Yes,
the voters in Europe, have absolutely nothing to say about what happens in Europe.
Here. Yes,
I think that it would be very much in the interest of the oligarchs, I think, to have a universal income, because before it can be redistributed, it has to go through some hands. And if you control the banks, it's not like Bitcoin, where it's just kind of shared and distributed by an algorithm. It has to go through some hands, and those hands, whether it be a bank or a large corporation or something, they have a big interest in that, because they can take a little bit of it, like pinch a little bit of it, and make great profit from nothing, basically, by just redistributing that money, taking it and then giving it back to everybody.
It's basically
the thing I don't understand. Can you explain me one thing? If everybody, if it's not means tested, like it says in Finland, it says universal basic income is a welfare program in which all citizens receive an unconditional sum of money from the government. So if everybody gets the same amount of money, where does it come from? Because if you look at a machine that generates power, there's a physical law that when you generate power, you never have 100% efficiency. So you have to actually expend at least 100% or more. That means that if you distribute monies to the whole population, then somebody has to pay more than is given out to everybody.
And if it's not
basically, the perpetual motion machine does not work, right? First point one. Secondly, if I would receive a guaranteed income, even if it's 600 euros, which is more than our minimum wage, I would not work. Okay, if the whole population of a country receives a guaranteed income and they do not work, where does the money come from?
Exactly. It has to be printed then. It's like Venezuelan models.
Even then, even printed where it won't work. It'll become.
But here's the problem. Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson, they're all for it, and these are people who are highly driven. They would actually do the work, and they assume that the majority of people would prefer working to having handouts. So the question is, would you work, and how much would you be willing to be taken away from?
I'm sorry.
That
reality has proven time and time and time again that people will not work if the handouts are sufficient.
That's what I was going to say. They don't take into account human nature.
Is it sufficient? Is 600 sufficient?
Human nature is even the socialists don't take care of human nature. The socialism thinks that, oh, we'll bring this utopia, make everyone just get the minimum. No human being worth no hominin, no primate. I'm going down to the primate level. The basic our cousins. The chimpanzees, the gorillas, our ancestors, they don't want the minimum, they want the maximum. It's in our primate nature.
Right. But that would mean you'd have to additionally do work, right? But you would probably optimize it and say, I'm just gonna work so much that I don't have to give back the 600 in form of a tax. So you would stay under a certain productivity. You would maybe say, I'm not going to work more than 10 hours per week or something.
No, it's not working more than 10 hours per week. If you want to establish
we already know the answer to that one as well. Exactly. Because this has already been proven as well in social experiments at universities, where professors basically decided to grade a class based on the average of that class. So top students wouldn't get an A; they would get.
They do that all the time. What are you talking about? They still do that here in Ireland. They do that
everywhere.
That's how they grade.
Which is a terrible system because it makes students perform less. Because A students stop learning as hard because getting an A is absolutely useless for them because they're not going to get it anyway. And C students are not studying harder because they will get the average anyway. So even students that aren't putting in the work will still score on average high enough because other people do the work. What happens is not that you get everyone trying to be better. What you get is everyone starting to do less. Those at the bottom feel that that's enough anyway. Those at the top do not want to carry the ones at the bottom anymore. So everything goes downhill. This is the problem of socialism time and time again.
That's not the logic. I don't understand. I thought the logic was that if you have big variances, that's fine. If everybody is the same, then it's downgraded. You know, I think that if everybody writes A's, and that's unrealistic, then it's less worth. But if you have a difficult test and you have some people who excel and they write the A's, and then the other ones are not good, then there's not going to be any correction. So the problem is if you have very simple tests, like they experience.
I'm sorry. It seems that we're talking about two different things then.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I misunderstood.
Let me start again. There was a university, and I think it was in America. I can't find the study real fast. I have been looking at it. I'm sorry. Where they... Sorry, go on.
It was in America.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Sorry to interrupt. Good night, everyone. It was this was awesome. Thank you all. I'm honored. I'm honored. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you next week, mate.
Of course, man. Of course. See you all. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anyway, back to the example I was talking about. On a university, they decided to have the grading be socialized, which meant that everyone would do the test and everyone would get the average outcome. So A students would
everybody
get a
gets the
C.
same note. That's terrible.
Yes. But that's what socialism is. That's what single payer is. And what happened is that the students that scored lowest kept scoring low because they didn't put any effort in. But the students that scored high started scoring lower and lower and lower because they recognized that putting in the effort only worked, well, to help other people, but not themselves. And this is the problem. Sorry?
If I was in that group, I'd be beating the crap out of the lower end kids because I ain't getting nothing but an A. Let's do military style. We'll go, oranges, feeding the kids until they do better.
Oh yeah,
that's not how it works.
But that's how it works in my group.
Well, I can understand what you're saying, but that's not how it works. And this is the problem with socialism. Socialism is the common lowest denominator.
It's true.
And
that's what's scary about it.
What I don't understand is that it seems to be the highest earners, and I know other people who are proponents of universal income tax. The highest earners and the ones that are have-nots who would obviously improve and benefit from it. They are the proponents of this universal
the highest
universal basic income. Yeah, they are, because they don't mind. They say, "Oh, I earn so much, I can give something off." They don't think of the middle class, They don't think that.
Let me continue. The highest earners are in favor of this because by showing that they are in favor of this, they are distancing themselves from the plutocracy, the capitalistic system, where they are the strongest, which they will be anyway, even if that system would go into effect.
Right.
But it's virtue signaling.
Yes.
No, I'm in favor of all this for you guys. We don't have it, but if it were up to me, we would have it. It's virtue signaling because they know it's not going to happen.
I think not. I don't think it's just virtual signaling. I think that these
what
people
is stopping them from giving away their money?
Listen. I think it's delusional. I think that they really think that everybody that they're so well off that they think that everybody who is in the middle class is also as well off. Oh yeah, you have 500 to spare, no problem. You have 1,000 to spare, that's no problem. It's for the greater good. You have that to spare, and you don't know how much when you, especially when you're single, you don't know how much of the sacrifice that is when you have a family where you kind of pinch the pennies.
Real Raven, if they really think,
they think that. I know people who do that.
If people like Bill Gates and
Bill Gates, I'm saying like software developers, with the 1, 2, 3, 4, with just a 5-digit income, not a 6-digit income. They think, oh yeah, it's fine. We can afford it.
What's stopping them from giving away their money?
Well, everybody has to do it. Everybody has to do it. Otherwise, it won't work because it's.
But if everyone does it, it doesn't work either.
Well, then they say,
they just say, "Oh no, I'm in favor of it." They know it will never happen, so it's just virtue signaling.
They say everybody who can afford it, and they think that's loads of people. They don't know how privileged they are. That's the problem. The people who are privileged do not know how privileged they are that they can afford such a ludicrous plan.
But Real Raven, we're circular. We're circulary now. Then that does mean that what they are doing is virtue signaling because they know it's not going to happen. They know they're not going to do it themselves.
No,
they would actually only virtue signaling that they would.
No, you're wrong. They would vote for this. They would actually vote for it. They would say it's a good idea.
That doesn't matter. There will never be enough people who will vote for it anyway, so they know it will not happen.
No, that's not true because they can vote for it and the poorest can vote as well. So if you have this imbalance where it opens up, you have powerful people at the top and you got a lot of poor people, and the middle, what's it called, the Mittelstand, I had the word earlier,
middle class.
The middle class gets thinned out. Then those ludicrous ideas suddenly start to get a hold, and you see it in America. You see the people who are really well off that go to the expensive universities. They're in favor of socialism, and people in the welfare class also are in favor of socialism. So you get this attack from both sides. You say it will not happen, but I think it has reached critical mass. The mainstream media is infected with it. They are.
That's the problem.
Yeah, but you really think do you really think that? That they're not influencing on the people who vote, on the politicians, on the policymakers?
They are, but they're not helping anyone. Real Raven.
I'm not saying that they're
richest
helping.
Countries in the world, 15 years ago, one of the richest countries in the world, Venezuela.
Yeah.
They have adopted everything that we were talking about now. They want to have single payer, everyone's the same, etc., etc. Do you think that the rich have become less rich in Venezuela?
But Venezuela isn't Germany, and Venezuela wasn't really capitalist. Take Germany. Take Germany.
It was.
Take
no. You're trying to.
No, they didn't have an infrastructure. They didn't have people working.
It was one of the richest countries in the world.
Yes, but that's only on paper. You know,
No. Don't play that. Before Chavez, Venezuela was a very, very wealthy Western country.
It was a wealthy country, but did it have a strong middle class?
Yes.
And the weird thing is, the people who are paying for it now still believe in the idea and concept of socialism. That they don't blame socialism; they just blame the leaders.
Yeah.
See, well, the problem that I see is that when you call it socialism, maybe people are against it. But if you don't call it socialism, but it is socialism, you just give it a new label and say, oh, it's just universal income tax.
I'm right back. I need to fast bio break. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you just relabel it and call it like universal healthcare. You just call it some social program, you know. So one of the questions is that where is it still a good idea? Where is it a social idea that kind of is good for like a cohesive society and helps society? And where is it socialism? You know, I think that in my personal opinion, the universal income is something that can't really work because there's just not enough super rich people that you can extract the money from. You know, there's this thought that there's enough super rich people that don't that it doesn't matter. You know, you just basically only really put the onus on these super rich people who won't feel when they are sharing their unjustified wealth. That's basically the view from down below.
Is their wealth unjustified then?
Well, I'm not stating, it's not my moral judgment. This is just the thought process that's behind it. It's like, oh, but there's this huge difference between these really high earners who earn like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 and us who only earn $20,000. There should be so one of the thoughts is that there should be a top cap. You should never earn more than 150,000 or 70. Just grab a number, any number. And if you earn more than that, that's immoral. You know, automatically, because, you know, let's say, I'll give you an example. Somebody who works as a nurse, right? They do a service for society as well as for the money that they work for, obviously, and they do a tough job, you know. And they're also constantly under threat of being incarcerated because they can do something wrong. And then, you know, like lives are at stake, health is at stake, and there's lawsuits and all that. So they have a high risk and they have a relatively low pay on this. And they compare their work that is high risk maybe with a banker, maybe with a stockbroker who earns 10 times as much. And they say, oh, that's immoral. He doesn't add as much value to society as I do.
Maybe they say it, but I'm completely against it to have a cap at your earnings, because the people who are getting more than $150,000, you were saying, also invested back into society, and you need those people. Otherwise, the governments are going to have a say in it, and I don't think that's a very healthy thing to do.
It's the trickle down effect, right? I mean, you say it trickles down. It depends. I mean, I think yes, it trickles down if they spend the money. No, it don't trickles down. It doesn't trickle down if they invest it in other countries.
No,
they invested in stocks.
It trickles down too. The thing is, we need to go away from the plutocratic systems we are having in the West now, where corporations have all sorts of weird protections so that competition is nearly destroyed. If we go away from that, we go back to true capitalism, where
But
people.
that is really difficult because
no, actually, it's not. It's quite simple.
It's not. It's probably simple if everybody does it at the same time and forbids it. But if you don't do that, then those companies just go away into China and to the more ruthless countries,
which
you get
is
a lot of
okay. They can
unemployment.
go to China. Listen. At this point in time, the pharma industry, and I'm going to use the pharma industry as an example because they are the biggest money makers in the world at this point in time. They have control of all sorts of medical productions, chemicals, medications, biochemicals, etc., etc. All of that is done by the pharma industry, and they have protections that will basically stop other companies to make the same. Those protections are effectively 80 years.
Like patent laws.
We know that certain medication, we've seen overhauls of certain medication in the last 10 years going from a handful of dollars. Oh, you're breaking away. Oh.
No.
I hope he's coming back soon.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, we see that, and I'm going to repeat it in a moment, I guess. We see that a handful of pharmaceutical companies are upping the prices several 1,000%. And I mean, we all remember, what's his name? Welcome back, Real Raven. We know that certain pharmaceutical companies are upping the prices for several 1,000%. Like, I think it was Scrapple. Elicia, you're our Native American. Scrapple, what was it?
I have a Native American daughter, but I wouldn't say I'm Native American.
As in, you are an American.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, what?
What was the name of the guy that increased the price of medication so high that it became an outrage? Scrapple, something like that? Is everyone's?
No, I can't. I know who you're talking about. I do know who you're talking about, but he wasn't even really a problem because.
No. Thank you, Martin Skrillex. Thank you, Ludicrous.
Because I'm like, I have no idea. Scrawny boy with brown hair, short.
And everyone fell over him. Eventually, the guy got jailed, but he got jailed because he was fraudulent. He did not get jailed for increasing the medication prices because that he was actually allowed. 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, a Dutch biochemical professor of the University of Utrecht was asked by the World Health Organization if he could try to make a certain medication 10% cheaper than it's being offered on the international market. And at the time he said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. It's a good test project for my university. It's good for my students. But I'm not sure if I'll be able to be 10% cheaper because I assume that the pharmaceutical companies use fair prices. And because I'm going to make small amounts of something, the raw materials will be more expensive. So I doubt if I'm going to be able to be a lot cheaper. Eventually, you don't want to know how much cheaper he could produce it, still at a profit than the official companies do. He was 95% cheaper.
Yeah, it's no wonder.
So the real problem we are having with our economies and our productions and our factories and whatnot is the protections they are getting to stay alive.
But, you know, I mean, he was cheaper, but obviously he didn't have the to do the research and development for the ingredients, right?
So then let them say, you know what, for 5 years, because this is how it used to be back in the days, for 5 years it's protected by the one who researched it. And after those 5 years, people are free to make free versions. And in all fairness, and this is a bullshit argument by the pharma industry, do you know where most of the money comes from when it comes to research?
Yeah, the public.
Indeed.
I mean, the one thing, even if they don't have complete transparency, I mean, let's say if the government was forced to publish their tax numbers, you know, then you could probably infer how much money they spend for research and development for a certain drug. You know, you could probably find out, okay, they earned this much, they spent this much in tax, so you cannot have spent more than, let's say, 100 million for your new aspirin or whatever. So you can't claim that once you've earned 5 years on the aspirin that you're still in the minus. You're now in the plus, you know. So I'd say it would be possible through Freedom of Information Acts to kind of reverse engineer.
But that's not happening.
Numbers.
I can tell you guys that's what my education was in. Actually, it only takes 1 year. 1 year on the market to break even. So you have 4 good years of solid profit. And most of the medication right now on the market is all really old medication. They tweak it just a tiny bit and then repackage it. It is corruption at its finest.
Yeah. The worst. I'm sorry, Elicia. I'm really. This is a topic I'm really passionate about. This is pissing me off. No end.
But it's not corruption. I mean, it's capitalism.
Yes, it is corruption. No, it's not capitalism. Capitalism.
The market wouldn't have done that. It's the government. The government is allowing them to have these monopolies.
Yeah. Well, it is the government then, because you know you can't expect a company not to try to maximize its profits within the given system.
That's why we say it's a plutocracy, or what a lot of people now call corporatism. This is plutocracy. This is not capitalism. Plutocracy is totalitarian. Socialism is totalitarian. And somehow these two have met. And now at the bottom, we're all shouting for socialism. And at the top, they are still pushing for more plutocracy. And in the end, who's going to be fucked? Everyone but the rich.
I just love playing the devil's advocate on your show, Modwain. It's just so much fun.
Well, you're welcome to do it. The thing is, though,
it's because otherwise it would be an echo chamber. You know, it would be terrible.
Fair point. But the thing is, this is what we need to address. It's not about whether politician A or B is good, or whether foreigner A or B is good. We have to have laws and rules that have to apply to everyone. We need to stop having protective classes. And whether it's a religion, whether it's a foreign group, whether it's a company, we need to stop having protected classes.
But it also means you are like for let's say in some regions strong regulations, right? That kind of rein in capitalism in some ways.
No, we don't. No, please don't rein in capitalism. Because as soon as you start reigning in capitalism, you create plutocracies.
But you didn't you say just a minute ago that you were against like monopolies profiteering from like
yes, I am against monopolies.
How do you do that without regulation?
Well, you can say that you're not allowed to have monopolies. Okay,
but that's a regulation then. That's a regulation then.
You can call that a regulation. Fair enough. Then have that regulation.
Obviously, what do you call it? Like it's not just a suggestion.
Listen, the monopoly situation becomes far less interesting for companies when they do not have the sole rights of certain concepts.
Yeah, I agree.
If they can make a computer for X amount of money and they make agreements with each other. Okay, we're going to make this computer for X amount of money. You do it for that one. Okay. As long as there isn't competition coming onto the market saying, haha, I can do that for half that price.
It's
they
interesting.
Can get away with that. They can get away with the monopoly. But it's not the monopoly that stops new companies. It's the regulations that stop new companies.
It's an interesting one, though. You know, there is patent law and there's also regulations, and there's things like security norms, for instance. You know, the CE sign and the TÜV in Germany, VDE and stuff like that. And I think that to a point they are. I think that they're not bad to a point because there are very ruthless new players on the market and capitalist market, just to go back to China, there's these companies that make these incredibly cheap, incredibly shitty products, that basically sell you something, free shipping, and they're just hyper competitive, and they live off a product, they live off a profit that they only need to make once, like of a mass market, so they don't care about having a bad name or anything. They just sell you any old shit ruthlessly, and they manage to destroy like high quality, or maybe I don't know if they manage, but the danger is, or the thought is, that you're not competitive enough anymore, even though you know that your quality is superior. You just cannot compete with those shitty products. Everybody says, "Oh, I had to buy a tap today." A tap for the kitchen, I got one from Lidl for 45 euros, and unfortunately the what's it called, the thread wasn't cut correctly. I tried to put it in 2 times and it failed, so I had to go to a shop today, a heating and plumbing shop, and the guy charged me 250 euro for a tap.
Yeah, but that's what you get. I mean, you have
no.
quality, you have cheap, but in a capitalistic system they can both exist. Most people will recognize that they will not go for the cheap ones if they keep failing them.
Yeah, you can be lucky. I was twice lucky, and the third time I wasn't.
Yeah, well, fair point, but that's how it is. But at this point in time, with the and not so much regulations, it's the protections that are the problem. It's not the regulations that are the problem.
Copyright and patent law, that's the main ones, I think.
Those are
Copyright is also a problem that we have in YouTube, with fair use. Copyright is a big problem because it used to be designed to protect the entrepreneurs, the small people, really, and it's turned into the exact opposite of what it's now.
Because it went too far. Had it been protection for 5 years, that's a decent amount. But as soon as you start adding to that time and make it longer and longer and longer and longer, eventually you are killing competition.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. We don't live in a capitalist system.
Just to go back to the thought of socialism, or the socialism as a meme, that the idea of cultural appropriation is actually also kind of a child of the copyright protection thought. That copyright, that okay, that's kind of a tribal version of it, but it basically means if you are in a certain in-group, in a privileged group, then you have a right to, let's say, wear that Chinese dress. But if you're just a American prom queen, you can't wear that Chinese dress, and so it's sort of a copyright on culture. It's very interesting, I think.
Welcome back, John.
So I don't know. I don't know. It's probably not so much to do with socialism, but it's kind of a tribal version of a weird kind of regulation holding mankind back, really, because if you don't have this cross-pollination of cultures, you don't have innovation. You're not going to come up with a pretzel if somebody says that white dough or using alkalines is just reserved to like Southern Germans. You're not going to have.
But that's the problem, and with the push for socialism at the bottom and a plutocracy at the top, our societies are becoming more totalitarian, and we are denied to see this. We are not allowed to recognize this. We're not allowed to point this out, and this is our main problem.
If you would implement a basic wage, I think innovation would be even less. People get more how do we call it? Sheeple. Well, what I'm suggesting will not help to tackle the multinationals, but instead of a basic wage gap, why can't we have the first, let's say, 20,000 euros tax free?
Well, that'd be cool.
That would be very nice. But wouldn't that help? Because we at least can agree that you need an incentive to at least play a role in this society, or even rise above yourself. There has to be an incentive. I think if everybody would get their money every month, they also would stay on the couches, and it's not going to happen that everybody is going to find his this thing.
Let me shoot you down in flames. Can I shoot you down in flames? I think that if you got a really clever accountant, he could probably turn the figures so that your suggestion of the 20,000 tax-free, the first 20,000 tax-free, into a universal income of 600 euros for everybody. It could actually end up as exactly...
No, that would be different, because the basic wage would be given to you. And the tax-free money, you still need to go out and earn.
Yeah, that's true. You have to earn it. Yeah. So you can't really win if you don't do anything at all. So yeah, that's right.
And for small companies, that would be really great, because especially at the beginning, if you start a new company, the first years there's always putting money and effort into it before it starts paying back. So
we have something similar in the welfare system. You have certain thresholds, but if you're unemployed for more than 1 year, you can apply for a back to work self-employed scheme, and they kind of support you. For the first year they pay I think 100%, and then the second year they pay 75%. So they kind of wean you off, and you don't take the full hit in the minute you kind of try to make yourself self-employed. I think that's a good idea.
We have, I think there's some experiments here with that also, but you're still under the umbrella of the nanny state in that case. But it's still
you're
the
phased
government.
out, though. You are phased out.
Yeah, I think the system that Real Raven is talking about would actually be a good system.
It's a good system. There was only one disadvantage. There's one disadvantage.
Set up, but if you don't manage, then you'll have less and less and less.
The only disadvantage I see with that is that you have to be unemployed, and not just on benefit, but actually on the other one, allowance, for 1 year. So it incentivizes you to be lazy for a year, and that can be already enough to pollute you so much that you say, I don't bother. It's so, I think they should straight away say, or maybe after the first month say, okay, if you want to be self-employed, we're going to help you. We'll give you a leg up. I know it's very hard to be self-employed, because you have to pay an accountant, you have to pay income tax, you have to learn bookkeeping, all that bullshit, But the best way to be, like, I think, self-employed, or doing something, creating something from nothing, rather than working for the man, is really to just start doing it. And then learn as you go, rather than saying, okay, you have to meet regulation A, then this. We can't have you earning too little, because we need a minimum of tax from you. It's really crazy, And they should give you help, say, look, in the beginning you will have expenses. I think, again, there's allowances made when you open a company. The first year, they kind of squint a little bit and say, okay, first year, you don't really have to pay taxes, or if you earn less than 14,000, then that's okay, They kind of expect you to make a huge leap, though, the next year, and then, so we'll see.
Anyway, guys, I'll tell you more about the time. I normally go on like 15 minutes longer, but I have to admit that I'm fighting tears in my eyes because I'm so tired.
Because it's so boring.
No, it's not boring at all. This is a very strong, and this is by far the biggest problem. It's not Group A or Group B. It's society, and the way governments are forcing our societies. But as it is, I'm going to call it quits, because old man is tired.
All right.
Anyone want to have any final words?
Russia.
Sorry, I'm eating dinner while you guys are talking.
Just do it.
Oh yeah, let's all vote for Trump getting the Nobel Prize.
Oh yes, I'm cheering.
Just for the
what Nobel Prize should he get?
The noblest of Nobel prizes.
The Nobel Prize of Peace.
Yeah, the peace one.
Trump is a president of peace.
Yeah.
Well, if North and South Korea actually have signed a peace, then maybe. But till that time, he earns that peace prize just as much as what's his face Obama did. But then again, Obama did get it. So.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the whole price says nothing at all if that's the case.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, he proved that you can get it for nothing.
He proved you can get it for becoming the president with the biggest war reputation of all presidents of the United States.
Well, in fairness, he was the first to use social media in his campaign, you know, but he didn't use it for recreational purposes.
But now
that's a whole new level of shitlordery when you kind of do it for recreational purposes. You know, you're not allowed to do that. You're a leader. You don't have recreation.
Anyway, guys, if no one else has anything to say, John, you want anything?
Sounds like a toilet flush.
Yeah, that was Elicia though. That wasn't John.
It was my fork. I'm sorry.
Your fork sounds like a hanger.
Well, in that case, I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming. Thank you for chatting along with us. And thank you for hearing us ramble. And I like to say goodbye to everyone.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.